Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm working on, cleaning out my shed and just doing some different things, get my traps prepped and stuff like that. And I'm watching lots of other trapping videos and from other different trappers out there. And what I'm seeing right now, everybody do is trap prep. I always try to do something different. I don't like to try to do the same thing everybody else is doing. So I've already made a trap prep video last year. So if you're interested in that, go check out last year's video. I also made a video last year on how to make wax dirt. If you're interested in doing that, go check it out. But in this episode, I'm going to talk about the different kind of dirts: peat moss, coveralls, wax dirt, dry dirt, wax sand, all these kind of things, why people use them, and the benefits, pros and cons of those things. Also, I'm going to try to just throw some footage in here instead of just me talking to you. I'm going to throw in some footage from last trapping season, some other trapping stuff, and just kind of do a voiceover. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's what we're talking about. You've dug a hole in the ground to put your trap into it. Your trap is now in the ground and you have to cover it with something. If you live in an area where you get lots of rain and then maybe freeze conditions, or any place that goes below freezing, you're going to have issues with your trap freezing in place, meaning your trap will be frozen down in the ground. The animal, the coyote, the fox, the bobcat, whatever it is you're after, comes, tries to get your bait, and it's either gets the bait or doesn't, whatever, but it steps right on your trap and your trap cannot fire because it is frozen in place. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about preventing your trap from freezing. That's what we're going to talk about today. The first one we're going to talk about is wax dirt. Wax dirt is the best method of all these methods. I'm not going to save the best for last. I'm going to just tell you right off the bat, wax dirt is the best one to use. What you're pretty much doing is you're taking dirt from your area, you're sifting it and getting all the sticks, clumps, and all that out of there, and you're getting just more like a dust, like a dirt dust kind of style dirt. And then you're going to take wax, flaked wax, and put it inside of that dirt and melt it so that it encases all of that dirt. Then you're going to break all of that up to make sure that it doesn't turn into big hard globs, and it's just going to look like a bucket of regular dirt, but you're indeed making waterproof dirt. You can also do this with sand. There's some pros and cons to this. The pros to doing this is, it is the one that works the best. The con, it's very heavy to carry. Imagine carrying a 5-gallon bucket of dirt to all your set locations, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a bucket of dirt. And it does cost a lot to buy the wax, and it takes time to make it. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to make it. I use the method where I find something that has constant heat. So I use a turkey fryer. I put a clean pan on top of my turkey fryer, and I put dirt in there and mix it with the wax. You can check out, there's a lot of different videos on people doing this, but I have a video, I think it's called, I'll just put an image of it right now during this video. Go check out that video and it will tell you how to make it. But it takes time to do any of them. So I've got the heat in the pan method is how I do it. You could do this on the stovetop in your house, or you could do it over a wood burner. I don't like to do it over open fire because I like to be able to control the heat. That way I can come up with a good system. Some people, probably the best way to do it is some people will buy a concrete mixer, like a portable one, like a one-man job kind of concrete mixer, not a big old huge concrete truck, but they'll have like a concrete mixer. Same thing. They'll add some sort of propane heat underneath of it so they can regulate it. They throw in the wax dirt, they throw in dirt, they throw in wax, and as that thing is rotating and spinning, they have that heat go into it. That way it prevents it from clumping, and then they take it out, put it out on a tarp, and spread it around with a rake. You could probably make the most wax dirt the fastest with that method. I've seen people take wax and dirt, mix it together, or just put it on tarps out in the sun. What I don't like about them, it's a great way to do it if you have the time. That's the issue. If you don't have the time, which I never seem to do, you're going to have to pretty much stay with that all day, and it can't rain. So you got to make sure that you have dry dirt to start with. And you have to make sure you have dry sand. If you're going to use wax sand, pretty much the same pros, same cons too. It's heavier. The only thing I wouldn't like about wax sand, and I've never used it, is I imagine it would be harder to pack that sand to make a good, to have your trap bedded solid. Some people say that it's tougher to bed with, and some people say it's fine. So, tomato, tomato. Another thing people like to use is peat moss, and peat moss is it's what I started out with my first couple seasons of trapping, and it works really well. You can get it at a lot of different places. I mean, Home Depot, Lowe's, those places sell it. Walmart, you can get peat moss. What's great about it is it's extremely lightweight and it's extremely cheap. It's really nice carrying a 5-gallon bucket of peat moss out to a trap location. I mean, it doesn't weigh much of anything. And it feels nice when you're used to carrying out buckets of dirt. But you still have to dry it out. I mean, you got to lay it on the tarp and you got to dry that stuff out. But the cons to that is when it gets wet, it will definitely freeze. So if you've got the peat moss set out and it's a 36-degree night and it's raining a little bit, and then it changes into snow, sleet, and gets real hard, it gets 28 degrees, it's going to freeze it real hard and that trap won't fire. Now, the good thing about peat moss is it's not too hard to, if it does get wet, it's not too hard to scoop that out of your trap bed to add new peat moss. And since it's so lightweight and cheap, you can kind of keep doing it, but you are going to have to, maintain those traps pretty much every single day if you're having freeze thaw conditions with peat moss. Some people have great success with peat moss and they really like it. I think it's because of the lightweight and how cheap it is. And not a lot of, don't have to do a lot of work to get it ready. You can go buy some and probably use it that day, which is really, really nice. So it does freeze when it gets wet. It also, if you have a large amount of rain hit, it will wash out. That's another pro to the wax sand, wax dirt. That stuff doesn't wash. I mean, you'd have to have monsoon kind of rain to get wax dirt to wash out. But normally the water just beads right off the top of it, which is really, really nice. Now, none of these methods, just so you know, none of these methods are going to work if you're getting a bunch of snow on the ground and then the snow gets wet and then it gets a hard freeze. If it freezes over top of your entire set, I mean, it's frozen. You're going to have to go out there and break up that snow over top of that set so that trap can go off. What's funny is, I mean, I've had traps buried down in the dirt, get snowed on, get covered with ice, and just there's no way they could fire. And then it melts, and then that trap still works, with wax dirt. The other methods, I've had a lot of issues with them. So yeah, that. Peat moss is another really good option if you don't have a lot of tools to make wax dirt. That's a great thing to start off with. I probably should have just mentioned it with peat moss and just thrown it in there, but cover hulls is another thing that people use. I've never used cover hulls. As far as I can understand, it's about the same as peat moss when it comes to using it for trap, and it's lightweight also, but it does the same thing. It washes out if there's a lot of rain, and it does freeze when it's wet. So that's, I'm just throwing that in with peat moss if you want to use cover hulls, if that's easy for you to get in your area. Another method that people use, and I use it sometimes still, grass clippings, straw clippings, or hay. The point of I normally use these, it's normally set specific. Now, some people use this all the time, and that's fine. But what they're doing is they're keeping their grass. So you mow grass. I imagine if you're trapping, you probably mow grass at some point. You have grass and you just take it and dry it out, and then you can have a whole garbage bag full of dry grass. You plant the trap down in the ground. Some people will make a little bed with the grass to put their trap into the grass, and then they cover with grass. The idea is you're cutting the grass small enough so that it can't get stuck in the jaws and prevent the trap from firing. But what I really like about the grass clipping method is it makes it look really natural. So you can do a lot more sneaky kind of dirt holes where everything's not blown out, which I think coyotes are used to seeing. And so whenever you use those grass clippings, I've had really good success catching coyotes and fox with grass clippings. Straw and hay, I like to make hay sets, or a straw set, however you want to look at it. But all these other methods, the same thing. Once they get wet, they wash out and they will freeze. So whenever I make a hay set, all I'm doing is picking an area on the ground where I want to put my trap. I dig a hole, put the trap down in the hole. You can lay it on top of the straw, but you got to have that trap level with the ground. And then you're covering a large area with straw or hay or grass, so that animal's not suspicious of that one spot, but you're not covering that trap with dirt. You're covering with the clippings, and you'll cut those clippings to a small size once again, so they won't get stuck in a trap and jaw. What's nice about all of those sets, if you're using straw or hay, the eye appeal at those sets really gets the attention of coyote. It almost looks like a round bale got busted open and is laying in the middle of a field. So those coyotes are used to going up to those kind of things and trying to find mice. So I've had good success. I've actually caught a fair amount of red fox in those kind of sets. So that's a good thing to look into if you have the ability to get a hold of those. So that's your pros. Your pros are good eye appeal, easy to get, natural looking. Your cons, freezes when it's wet, it'll blow away if it's real dry and real windy, and it washes out. The last method that a lot of people use, and you're probably going to use, especially if you're from the South and you don't have to worry about freezing conditions, is just simple, regular dirt. Hey, if you're blessed to be in an area where you don't have to worry about freeze thaw conditions, you know, God bless you, man. It's like that's the easiest way to do it. If you could just use your regular dirt in your area, that's awesome. You don't have to worry about these kind of things. Most of us, if you're trapping, you're going after the fur, and in order for the fur to be good, it's got to be cold. And most of the time, you're going to have to look towards one of these other methods. If you're having problems finding dry dirt in middle season, I even do this to go get my dry dirt to sift to make wax dirt out of. Check underneath bridges. It's one of the best places to look. Normally the dirt is easy to get to. It's like, whenever you have a bunch of floods in your area and it raises up the water and you get that sandy kind of dirt underneath, I get a lot of that. It's easy to just take a shovel and a couple 5-gallon buckets, on your way home from work or on your way to, jump out the truck, go down with those buckets, fill them up with dirt. Normally, you don't have to sift too much out of them. You can be real picky, choosy, and normally the dirt's easy to get to. So, yeah, that works great. Kind of like a little bonus, something I've never done, but I've only seen like a handful of people in all my years checking this stuff out on YouTube. I've only seen a handful of people that are really far up north. I'm talking in places like frozen tundra style stuff, when it snows, it never melts until spring, maybe late spring, which I'm not in those kind of areas. But I've actually seen guys take, for like wolves and coyotes, they'll use pretty much like a Walmart bag, like a white Walmart bag, and they'll cover their entire trap with this bag and bury it right in the snow, and then just take some of that light snow and sprinkle it all over top of that bag. And I used to think like, man, it's going to make it crinkle and make those noises, but when you're walking around on frozen snow all the time, it does make that kind of noise. And I've seen guys do that. It prevents their trap from getting frozen, like stuck in there, and then their trap can go off when that animal steps on it. That's just kind of like a little bonus thing that I find interesting. If you're watching this and you're from one of those places, throw out in the comments like how you do it, because I think that's pretty cool. I like learning new methods. I'm not opposed to hearing from somebody else on how they do it. I don't feel that there's exact one way answer the right way every time. There's different methods, different people from different areas, and they've probably figured out different things. So if you've got tips that go along with how to keep your trap functioning, send it out there. I mean, some people use flake antifreeze, which I've used. You put it down in the hole. I've seen people use combinations where they don't want to use up all their wax dirt and cover up the entire set with it, so they'll take a little bit of wax dirt, put it on the bottom so the jaws won't freeze down. They'll use the peat moss almost as like a pan cover underall and cover that, and then they'll cover the rest with straw. I mean, whatever it is, there's a lot of different methods out there, and as you get into trapping and get out there and start doing it for yourself, you're going to find out what works for you and works for you in your area. Once again, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching this. I hope that these episodes are helpful if you're a beginner trapper. If you haven't, subscribed to this channel, consider it. I know it's a long ways off, but when trapping season finally does get here, it seems like this channel gains a lot more traffic and it gets a lot more subscribers. So I'm looking to do, when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm looking to do a dozen Bridger number 2 dogless traps. That's what I'm going to give away, and I'm going to do it to anybody who's publicly subscribed. So consider doing that. Once again, I just want to thank you again for watching. God bless, tight chains, and I'll see you all in the next one.